Alright, so let's discuss the mirror tools in HardOp. So there's an option here if you select a cube or whatever you have in your scene. Select it and press the Q key. You're going to have an option here for mirror and array. I actually never use this button. I find it pretty useless because there's a much easier way to do it. Array V2 we've already discussed, so the array is kind of obsolete here. But if you want to do a mirror, all you have to do is press the Alt+X key and it'll bring up this gizmo right here. So let me add in a cut or two to kind of demonstrate the mirror tool. So maybe, I don't know, something like this. Okay, so if I want to mirror this area to the other side across the y-axis, if you press Alt+X, what you want to do is select the gizmo of the side you're mirroring from, and then it'll mirror to the other side. It's kind of counterintuitive, but basically the side you want to mirror from is the side you're going to click on. Kind of weird to get used to, but you'll pick up on it pretty quickly, at least I did. So that's all you have to do to mirror that way, and maybe if you want to mirror across the x-axis from this side to this side, I'm going to choose this axis right here. So that's what the mirror modifier does. It's super easy to understand, but it's not the only thing that's important. So if you press Alt+X, you're going to also notice we have a big list of different settings in here. The main ones I use are Modifier, which is basically just mirror, New Modifier, which is basically just a new mirror modifier, so we'll add in an additional one. And we also have the Symmetry option. These other ones here in the middle I don't use too much, but I will go over them. So the second one is New Modifier. So say I want to add in a brand new mirror modifier. Maybe I want the brand new one to affect, go over the z-axis, so a separate modifier. Instead of going on here and selecting this axis and appending it to the already existing mirror, I could maybe add in a new mirror modifier if there was a reason I wanted to do that. And you're going to also notice these gizmos will also light up, indicating that these aren't being used on the new modifier, which is pretty cool. Now you're going to see we can do all sorts of cool stuff with that. Basically, that's how you can add in an additional mirror modifier in one click. So mirror is the easy one to understand. Not going to go too much into detail on that one. It's pretty self-explanatory. But the other ones here are kind of confusing. So I'm going to start with Symmetry because you'll be using this one probably the second most behind the regular mirror. So Symmetry basically works like this. So let me actually just work on, I guess, this side. Okay, so right now this thing is completely non-destructive, so Symmetry is not going to actually do anything. If I try to symmetrize to the other side, nothing's going to happen. And that's because we don't have these booleans applied. But check this out. If I apply these booleans here, what Symmetry does is it does the same exact thing as mirror, but it mirrors geometry that's applied in the on the actual mesh. So as long as your cuts are applied in our physical geometry and not, live in the modifier stack like this, as long as they're applied, then Symmetry will work. So basically what Symmetry does is it does the same exact thing as mirror, but it applies a mirror and then applies, it adds a mirror modifier and then applies the mirror right afterwards, is basically what Symmetry is doing. And it also adds in an edge right down the middle to indicate the symmetry. So what I could do here is I could either use a simple mirror modifier like this, and then I could go in and apply the mirror, which is 2 steps. But if I just want to do this in 1 step, so that way the geometry is instantly live, all I'd have to do is come in here, use a Symmetry, and now you're going to see I kind of avoid the step of having to go in here and apply the mirror modifier. So they're basically the same thing. This one's just a bit quicker if you're working more destructively. So there's a similar one in here as well. If you press Alt+X, there's one here called Modifier and Apply, which basically does the same thing as Symmetry as far as I understand it. Only difference here, let me show you, but let me undo this. So if I were to just run a basic Symmetry right now with nothing selected, it's going to symmetrize to this side, right? But if I had this area selected, for example, and I run a Symmetry, you're going to see it becomes deselected. The main difference I've seen between Symmetry and the Modifier and Apply option is that they do the exact same thing, but this one retains the selection once you mirror to the other side. So if you use a Symmetry, this will become deselected. If you use Modifier and Apply, these will remain selected. So in case you need to have these selected for whatever reason, I would use Modifier and Apply instead. So that's about it, and then we of course have bisect and modifier and bisect. So bisect's pretty simple, it just bisects the object, right? That's all it does. Whereas bisect and modifier does this, but it also applies a mirror afterwards. So bisect and modifier is the same as bisect, and then add in a mirror like this. Same thing, but it basically reduces the step. So instead of doing two different mirrors, I can just go in here, use bisect and modifier, bisect it, and then apply a mirror. So I don't really use this one at all, but it can be useful depending on the situation. So that's it for the mirror modifier. Like I said, most of the time you're only going to be using the regular mirror option and symmetry. These are the main two that I use, but sometimes you might find new modifier and modifier and apply to be useful as well. These other two I don't really touch too much, so you probably don't need to stress too much about them, but it can be useful depending on the situation. And that's not it for mirror. Mirror does a lot more than you might think. So say for example, let me add in a new cube actually, this one's getting on my nerves. So say we have a cube here, right? And maybe we have some sort of, I don't know, maybe we have like a cylinder over here somewhere. So if I want to mirror the cylinder over a specific object, what I can actually do is select the object I want to mirror and then shift click the object I want to mirror over, press Alt+X, and then I can run a mirror like that. So that is how you can actually mirror over something. You're going to see all that's really doing is it's applying a mirror and using a mirror object as the one we shift clicked on. So this option is pretty powerful because originally without this option you'd have to go in here, add a mirror, choose the correct axis, and then choose the mirror object. It was just a pain. Now you can just go in here, shift click, Alt+X, and you're done. Just way quicker that way. And you can of course do it again. You know, I could do this on the x-axis as well and get the same type of effects, so that's pretty cool. And you can also choose what you want to mirror over. So say for example I had the 3D cursor like over here somewhere, right? I can actually mirror over the 3D cursor if that's what I'm going for. This is kind of a sloppy example. Maybe I'll let me see, maybe I'll put this 3D cursor back in the center. Let me just reset the location. Maybe I'll just move it a bit on the Y. So I can actually mirror over the 3D cursor as well. If you press Alt+X, there's a list of advanced settings in here. If you take on this little gizmo option, it'll open up this advanced settings menu. You can change the gizmo and the transform orientation. I don't use this one too much, but it can be useful. The main one I focus on here is you can use the active origin as the mirror point, which is basically mirroring over itself. You can choose the median point, you can choose the cursor, which is right here, and mirror over the cursor, or you can also choose individual origins, but I don't really use that one. The main two you'll be using for mirroring is the cursor option to mirror over the 3D cursor, and the active origin to mirror over the active origin. So, you know, something like this, like we did before, Alt+X and then run a mirror like that. So I don't really think you'll ever use median point or individual origins ever when you're doing mirror, but they are there in case you need them. And one other thing, I'll discuss the transform orientation real quick. So let me remove the mirror on this piece and just delete this one out. So if you have a rotated object, right, like this, if you press Alt+X, it's going to basically mirror according to the normal orientation. If you want to mirror over that, you just leave it how it is, but if you want to mirror globally, all you have to do is change to the global position and you'll be back to normal. So in the case you ever need to mirror over a static axis, you just change to global. If you want to mirror over the local rotation, you just keep it set to local. These are, like I said, more advanced settings, so you don't really have to leave this turned on unless you're doing some more advanced type of mirrors, but that option is there should you need it. So that's about it. I don't think there's too much left to get into detail on for the mirror. There are of course help menus in here should you need to access some more additional settings, but mostly you're not going to be using any of these. So if you need anything else, just press the H key and you'll have all the help that you need. But basically everything presented in this video is all you're ever going to be using. I think the last thing worth mentioning is that whenever you're mirroring, sometimes it's a bit annoying to go in here and select the mirror mode. So what you can actually do is hold the Alt key and scroll up or down to scroll through those, or you could simply press the D key and select it more manually, a bit easier than having to go up here and click the drop down every time. So in the case you're lazy like me and don't like going through these settings either should you need them, you can also press the W key to cycle through the different view orientations, which I don't really ever use. Like I said, I only use local and global. You can also cycle through the different pivot points by pressing the S key. Once again, this is all listed down here should you need it. So that's just a quicker way than clicking the drop down. And yeah, that's basically about it. I'm not going to go through really anything else because I presented just about everything you need for the Mirror Modifier. So hopefully this video gave you some insight and you have a better understanding of the Mirror Modifier and how these different settings here work.